As the poorest continent in the world, with more than 60% of its land covered by deserts and arid regions, Africa still feeds over 1.4 billion people and possesses the largest reserve of uncultivated farmland on the planet. Every year, African farmers produce more than 1 billion tons of agricultural products, while also dominating global markets for commodities such as cocoa, black tea, and shea nuts. Raw materials that power food supply chains worth hundreds of billions of dollars. So how, under the scorching heat of the equatorial sun, prolonged droughts, and still limited infrastructure, does Africa continue to sustain one of the most promising agricultural systems in the world? Today, join Agriculture Insight as we explore how African farmers transform nearly 2 billion acres of dry land into a massive production machine, where natural limits are pushed back through hard work, farming experience, and technological progress. Now let's begin. West Africa, the cocoa capital of the world, producing more than 70% of the global cocoa supply each year, sustaining a chocolate industry worth over $100 billion, and serving as an irreplaceable backbone behind giant chocolate empires like Mars, Nestlé, Ferrero, and Hershey's. Here, cocoa season is not simply about harvesting, but a race against time, where even a small mistake can affect the next harvest. Across the vast plantations of Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana, farmers almost completely avoid using machinery. Instead, they rely on hooked knives and long-handled sickles to cut each cocoa pod by hand. Every cut must be precise enough to separate the pod from the trunk without damaging the flower cushion, the part of the tree where future pods will continue to grow. A single wrong cut can leave an entire branch unable to bear fruit for many seasons afterward. But the true value lies deep inside that rough, textured shell. Cocoa beans coated in a white, sticky pulp with a lightly sweet, tangy flavor, carrying hints of mango, pineapple, and tropical passion fruit. After being removed from the pods, the cocoa beans are gathered into large piles and covered with banana leaves or burlap sacks to trigger fermentation, a process often considered the key to awakening the soul of chocolate. Over the next 5 to 7 days, microorganisms become highly active, raising the temperature of the bean mass to around 50 degrees Celsius and gradually transforming the harsh bitterness into the distinctive flavor foundation of chocolate. Once this process is complete, the beans do not leave immediately, but are instead dried under the sun as a final flavor-locking step, reducing moisture to a safe level and stabilizing all the chemical changes that have just taken place. Only after the moisture is properly controlled and the flavor has stabilized through fermentation are the cocoa beans considered ready to enter the industrial stage. At the very bottom of the more than $100 billion chocolate industry, many cocoa farmers in Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana earn only around 1 to 2 a day under the 35 degrees Celsius heat of the equatorial climate, while a premium chocolate bar can sell for $15 to $25. That gap exposes one of the greatest contradictions in the global cocoa industry. The people producing its most important raw material receive less than 6% of the money paid by the final consumer. Many people still think of Japan as the world's tea empire because of its famous tea ceremonies, but in reality, the country accounts for only around 2 to 3% of global tea production. The true dominant force is Kenya, the African nation that leads global black tea exports and supplies around 70 to 80% of the raw material used in the world's tea bag industry, appearing in products from major brands such as Lipton, Twinings, and PG Tips. Unlike the tea plantations in Japan, where modern harvesting machines move in straight lines between almost perfectly trimmed rows, many tea-growing regions in Kenya still rely heavily on manual labor. Here, workers remain loyal to the 2 leaves and a bud harvesting method, a standard considered the soul of high-quality black tea. To harvest tea, workers must use their fingertips to precisely pluck the correct leaves, twist their wrists almost instinctively, then quickly drop them into baskets carried on their backs in a rhythm so steady it feels almost mechanical. A skilled tea picker can harvest up to 30 to 50 kilograms of fresh leaves per day, and as soon as the baskets are filled, they are immediately transported to collection points. Alongside fully manual harvesting methods, many farms in Kenya have now widely adopted compact handheld tea harvesting machines, allowing farmers to harvest around 3 times faster. Only slightly larger than a handheld grass trimmer, this device uses high-speed vibrating blades combined with a front-mounted leaf collection bag, and under continuous operation can harvest up to 150 to 200 kilograms of fresh tea leaves per hour. Although both come from the same tea plant species, Camellia sinensis, differences in climate and processing methods have driven Japanese tea and Kenyan tea in 2 almost completely opposite directions. While Japan focuses on small leaf green teas with a delicate umami flavor, Kenya concentrates on high-tannin, strong-flavored, high-yield tea varieties to become one of the main suppliers behind the global mass-market black tea industry. But the journey of Kenyan tea does not end on the mist-covered hillsides. The moment the leaves arrive at the factory, they immediately enter a race against time, inside industrial processing lines. First, the tea leaves are spread across massive withering troughs for around 8 to 12 hours to reduce moisture before being sent through CTC systems that crush, tear, and curl them into small tea particles used for mass-market black tea production. For orthodox whole-leaf teas, the leaves are instead laid out on large trays to oxidize slowly while preserving most of their natural structure. Finally, everything is dried at high temperatures to lower the moisture content to just around 2 to 3%, locking in flavor and extending shelf life for export shipments traveling around the world. What is especially striking is that despite supplying much of the raw material for the global tea bag industry, many farmers in Kenya still sell their tea leaves at relatively low prices. Meanwhile, after being blended, packaged, and sold under international brands, those same tea leaves can increase in value by 10 to 20 times on supermarket shelves worldwide. As one of the most drought-resistant staple crops on the planet, sorghum has become almost a survival switch for African agriculture, feeding more than 500 million people and turning every harsh, dry season into a period of renewal for life itself. Today, in large-scale production regions such as South Africa, Sudan, and Ethiopia, the picture is changing as combine harvesters, most of them imported from the United States, begin replacing manual labor. These massive machines operate like mobile factories across the fields. As they move into the sorghum crop, the cutting headers lower simultaneously to gather the upright stalks. Inside the machine, rotating drums and screening systems separate the grain from the heads within seconds, achieving efficiencies of around 5 to 10 tons of grain per hour while removing straw and impurities. The cleaned grain is then transferred into onboard storage tanks, while the stalks are discharged behind the machine in long rows across the field. Immediately after harvest, the sorghum is transported to processing facilities for screening, impurity removal, and industrial grading before becoming raw material for livestock feed and food products consumed around the world. Known as the soft gold of Africa, Shea nuts are not only a beauty ingredient, but also the foundation of an economy that has supported generations, standing behind a global value chain worth more than $2 billion each year. Unlike oil palm, which is cultivated and harvested through highly industrialized systems, Shea operates under a completely different logic. The trees take 15 to 20 years to produce their first fruit, reach peak productivity only after several decades, and can live for up to 200 to 300 years, making each tree a true multi-generational investment. More than 90% of the world's Shea supply comes from naturally growing trees, creating one of the rare agricultural systems that requires almost no planting, no land ownership, and no fully controllable harvest cycle. People do not pick the fruit from the trees. they can only wait. And once the ripe fruits fall to the ground, they must quickly gather them under the scorching heat, because even a delay of a few hours can cause the entire harvest to spoil. From that moment on, a strict processing chain begins. The nuts are washed and vigorously rubbed inside large basins to remove the sticky pulp, then spread out under the sun for 2 to 3 days to dry and stabilize the oil inside. Once the proper dryness is reached, the nuts are cracked open to remove their rock-hard shells, revealing the fatty kernels, which are then roasted over high heat to activate the oils and prepare them for the extraction stage that follows. The ground kernel paste is then mixed with water, kneaded, and continuously stirred until it transforms from a heavy mass into a smooth, glossy mixture. At this stage, the oil gradually separates from the residue. Hot water is added and stirred again so the oil can gather and rise to the surface, where it is skimmed off and reheated to remove impurities before cooling into a rich golden butter. The same butter found in everything from chocolate to global cosmetic brands such as L'Oreal, Nivea, and The Body Shop. Today, Shea is often called the women's gold of Africa, as more than 16 million African women directly operate almost the entire value chain, an industry considered overwhelmingly female-dominated, where women hold a near-total presence from the very first stage to the final product. Considered the survival bank of Africa, more than 430 million goats are herded across the continent's dry semi-desert regions each year, forming a major economic sector worth over $95 billion for the entire continent. Along the edge of the Sahel Desert, where water is almost non-existent, goats survive in ways that would force many other animals to give up. They can go for days without drinking water, absorbing moisture directly from leaves, morning dew, and succulent plants. But their adaptability does not stop there. They can feed on dry branches and tree bark, and in parts of North Africa, goats even climb argan trees, reaching heights of 8 to 10 meters, to reach the small fruits above, creating a scene that looks almost like a glitch in nature, but is actually a perfectly evolved survival instinct. In many communities, each goat is far more than just livestock. It functions as living cash. When food is needed, goats can be sold, and during hardship, they can be traded, turning entire herds into a real financial system. Once they reach around 25 to 40 kilograms, most goats in Africa are sent to processing facilities, where they go through grading, butchering, chilling, and packaging before appearing in local markets or entering export chains bound for the Middle East and Europe. With horns stretching up to 2.5 meters long like giant biological antennas, Ankole cattle are not only ranked among the largest horned animals on Earth, but have also become an iconic symbol of Africa, deeply tied to both economic and cultural traditions. Biologically, Ankole Watusi cattle possess a tall, powerful build and a naturally aggressive temperament, standing up to 1.7 meters tall and weighing more than 700 kilograms. Despite their lean and elegant appearance, their muscles are extremely dense and resilient, perfectly adapted to the harsh, dry heat of East Africa. But what truly makes Ankole cattle remarkable is not just their appearance, but their ability to survive in environments where many other livestock breeds struggle to adapt. The cattle are allowed to roam freely across vast grasslands, grazing on their own and moving according to water sources under the guidance of herders. In many semi-arid regions of East Africa, where rivers and streams nearly disappear throughout the dry season, farmers often dig compacted earth reservoirs several meters wide and around 1 to 2 meters deep to maintain water supplies for their livestock. The reservoir walls are tightly packed with clay to reduce water seepage, while rainwater from the wet season or water pumped from wells is directed into them and stored for the weeks ahead. During the dry season, these simple reservoirs become almost like survival stations for entire herds of longhorned cattle, as each adult animal may require dozens of liters of water per day under the 30 degrees Celsius plus heat of the African savanna. In many cases, finding water and maintaining these reservoirs becomes just as important as finding grazing land itself. To protect the cattle from flies, mosquitoes, and parasitic ticks, dried cow dung is burned to create smoke, a traditional method used to reduce heat stress and help protect the herd from disease in tropical climates. Beyond their enormous horns, Ankole Watusi cattle are also known for producing rich, energy-dense milk, even though the yield is only around 1–2 liters per day. A few weeks after calving, milking usually takes place in the early morning or late afternoon when temperatures become cooler. One fascinating detail is that the milk is not poured directly into containers after milking. Instead, it undergoes a smoking process using fragrant wood and herbs inside handmade wooden gourds, giving the milk its distinctive smoky aroma. For many East African communities, Ankole herds are so valuable that their greatest worth does not lie in meat production, but in their ability to sustain entire families through long periods of drought. With a lifespan of more than 1,000 years and recognized as one of the largest trees on Earth, the Baobab not only captures global attention because of its enormous size, but also because of its remarkable economic value, generating more than $1 billion annually for Africa. Africans often call it the upside-down tree, because its giant branches resemble roots stretching into the sky. But what truly makes the baobab extraordinary is not its appearance, but the way it survives. A single tree can grow taller than 15 meters, become hollow enough for dozens of people to stand inside, and most importantly, store up to 120,000 liters of water, essentially functioning as a massive reservoir in the middle of the desert. Many people in the West, especially in the United States, think of baobab as simply a strange desert tree, but in reality, its fruit is considered one of nature's nutrient-rich superfoods. During harvest season, people once had to climb trunks rising dozens of meters high to collect the fruit, an extremely dangerous task. Today, most harvesters simply wait for the fully dried fruits to fall naturally to the ground. Mature fruits usually have hard shells, a grayish-brown color, and are completely dry. Harvesters walk around the base of the tree, gathering only intact fruits without cracks, then sorting them immediately to avoid mixing them with damp or spoiled ones. Because the entire harvesting process depends on the fruit falling naturally, protecting the tree itself becomes critically important. Many trees are wrapped with steel mesh around the trunk to protect them from elephants, rhinos, and external damage, because losing even part of the bark can seriously injure the tree and directly affect future harvests. After collection, the baobab fruits are cracked open to remove the dry pulp inside, which is then divided into 2 processing paths. The pulp is finely ground into powder for food products, while the seeds are pressed for oil used in the global beauty industry. Talking about Italy means talking about pasta. With nearly 4 million tons produced every year, Italy remains the world's #1 pasta producer, supplying billions of servings, from classic spaghetti to intricately shaped fusilli. This dominance begins with strict regulation. Under Italy's Italian Pasta Law 1967, all packaged dried pasta sold domestically must be made from 100% durum wheat semolina. Grown under the Mediterranean sun, this wheat has an exceptionally high protein content, giving pasta its firm bite and naturally golden color, without any additives. A key difference in premium Italian pasta comes from the use of bronze dies. While mass-produced, low-cost pasta is extruded through smooth Teflon dies to speed up production, high-quality Italian pasta is pressed through bronze molds. This deliberate choice creates a rougher, more porous surface, a clever mechanical design that helps sauce cling to every strand instead of slipping off, creating the perfect bite. After shaping, the pasta is dried on long vertical racks, allowing gravity to naturally stretch the strands straight and evenly. But the real secret lies in slow drying. Rather than blasting pasta with high heat for fast output, premium varieties are dried at temperatures below 50 degrees Celsius for up to 72 hours. This slow process preserves the starch structure and protein integrity, producing the firm, elastic texture known as al dente. Despite Italy producing more than 100 different pasta shapes, 3 varieties dominate the global market: spaghetti, penne, and fusilli, led by industry giant Barilla, which holds over 30% of the US pasta market. Leaving behind billion-dollar pasta strands, we step into one of the most iconic culinary production lines in the world. Each year, more than 2.7 billion pizzas are made in Italy, powering an industry worth tens of billions of dollars. At the heart of this system is Tipo Zero flour, an ultra-finely milled wheat flour with exceptionally low mineral content. To preserve authenticity, the Associazione Verace Pizza Napolitana enforces strict standards. Each pizza must be stretched by hand to retain its natural air pockets. The base must not exceed 3 millimeters in thickness, the crust edge no higher than 2 centimeters, and the use of a rolling pin is strictly prohibited. The most defining difference, however, lies in the baking process. Authentic Neapolitan pizza must be cooked in a wood-fired brick oven at temperatures between 430 and 485 degrees for just 60 to 90 seconds. This extreme heat causes the crust to rise rapidly, forming signature charred spots while the interior remains soft and moist, a texture that is very difficult to achieve with electric ovens. Did you know that farmers in Emilia-Romagna, the most fertile agricultural region in northern Italy, can actually use cheese as collateral for bank loans? More than 450,000 wheels of Parmigiano Reggiano are stored at Credito Emiliano, with a total value reaching $250 million, roughly equivalent to an entire mid-range jet fleet. This value begins with strict raw material standards. Only milk from cows fed on natural grass is allowed. No silage, no additives. Producing a single wheel weighing around 40 kilograms requires up to 550 liters of fresh milk, an intense level of concentration that pushes protein content to about 33%. At the dairy, the milk is heated in massive copper vats until it coagulates into a smooth, elastic curd. At the precise moment of readiness, cheesemakers use linen cloths to lift the steaming mass out of the way. With one decisive cut, the curd is split in 2, each vat yielding 2 wheels with nearly identical size and structure. After being placed into molds, gently pressed, and set into shape, the cheese is immersed in brine for about 20 days, a step that both develops its characteristic saltiness and forms a natural protective rind. It is then transferred to vast aging warehouses lined with towering wooden racks, where temperature and humidity are tightly controlled for 12 to 36 months, long enough for the flavor to evolve from fresh milk into rich, nutty, buttery complexity. At this stage, a unique inspection ritual takes place. Experts gently tap each wheel with small hammers and listen carefully to the sound vibrations to detect even the slightest internal flaws. Only those that produce a clear, firm, and uniform sound are fire-branded with certification marks, indicating a stable internal structure and qualification for continued aging. Wheels that fail this test have their markings removed and are immediately downgraded in value. Finally, at optimal maturity, tiny tyrosine krills begin to form inside the cheese, delivering a deep umami flavor and significantly increasing its value, in some cases even doubling it. To prevent counterfeiting, each wheel is embedded with a microscopic edible microchip in its rind, enabling full traceability from farm to consumer. The journey of Parmigiano Reggiano does not end there. Right after the cheese wheels are removed from the copper vats, the remaining way begins a new cycle, one in which part of Italy's more than 8 million pigs are raised on this nutrient-rich byproduct to produce one of the world's most prized cured meats, prosciutto di Parma. While many people remain cautious about processed meats due to additives, authentic prosciutto di Parma contains only 2 ingredients: pork and sea salt. After being hand-salted, the pork legs are hung in curing houses with open windows to catch the dry winds from the Apennine Mountains. These air currents act as a natural curing chamber, allowing the meat to mature slowly over 12 to 36 months, gradually concentrating its flavor. During the curing process, artisans periodically insert a thin metal needle deep into specific points of the ham, then withdraw it to smell and assess the internal fermentation. Even the slightest off aroma can lead to the entire leg being immediately discarded. Only those that pass every stage of inspection are branded with the Parma crown, a mark of authenticity and quality certification. Each approved leg typically sells for between $300 and over $800, comparable to a premium cut of bluefin tuna o toro served in high-end omakase restaurants. Meanwhile, salami represents a different approach: microbial fermentation. Coarsely ground meat is mixed with spices and wine, then left to allow beneficial bacteria to develop naturally. The white mold on the surface is not a sign of spoilage, but rather a protective layer that prevents harmful bacteria and contributes to its distinctive aroma. As a result, premium products such as salami felino can reach prices of $40 to $60 per kilogram, reflecting the value of time, craftsmanship, and natural conditions that no industrial process can truly replicate or accelerate. Now let's step out of the confines of the factory and into the open, to Piedmont, a region that produces over 90,000 tons of hazelnuts each year, ranking among the highest in Italy. Its ideal climate and soil conditions have given rise to the Tonda Gentile trilobata variety, widely regarded by experts as top tier, thanks to its high whole kernel yield and exceptional oil content. To supply the production lines of Ferrero, the giant behind Nutella and Ferrero Rocher, harvesting has been almost fully mechanized. Once the nuts naturally fall to the ground at peak ripeness, high-powered machines sweep beneath the trees, collecting both nuts and dry leaves. A filtration system then removes debris, retaining only firm, high-quality hazelnuts, with a processing capacity of up to 2 tons per hour, equivalent to the work of hundreds of laborers. However, inside the factory, the true value of Italian hazelnuts lies in a closely guarded roasting stage. The temperature is precisely controlled to trigger the Maillard reaction, the key process responsible for creating the deep, rich nuttiness and distinct caramel notes found in Italy's iconic chocolate and hazelnut cream products. The world often associates France with premium wine, but in Italy, the industry is driven by more than 500 officially registered native grape varieties, exceeding the combined total of France, Spain, and Greece. With an annual production of over 50 million hectoliters, Italy consistently holds its position as the world's #1 wine producer, accounting for nearly 20% of global supply. That means 1 out of every 5 bottles poured worldwide comes from the sun-drenched hills of the Mediterranean, where fragmented terrain creates thousands of microclimates, allowing Italian winemakers to produce everything from crisp, sparkling wines to bold reds capable of aging for decades. In Piedmont, a historic northern hub, manual harvesting remains the gold standard for premium wines such as Barolo and Amarone. Skilled workers use specialized shears to carefully select only the ripest grape clusters. This method preserves the natural bloom on the grape skins, which contains wild yeasts, while minimizing bruising, a critical factor in shaping depth of flavor from the very beginning. Meanwhile, the vast estates of Veneto and Puglia, spanning thousands of hectares, rely on massive mechanical harvesters. Using high-frequency vibration systems to shake grapes loose at high speed, these machines can reduce labor costs by up to 70%. Night harvesting, when temperatures drop, further slows oxidation and helps preserve delicate fruit aromas before the grapes are sent for pressing. From this point, the Italian wine industry splits into 2 parallel yet complementary systems. At the high end, DOCG and DOC wines are aged in large oak barrels, often stored deep in natural stone cellars, requiring anywhere from 2 to 5 years for tannins to develop complexity and balance. In contrast, mass-market wines like Prosecco and table wines are produced in stainless steel tanks, ensuring that millions of bottles each year maintain consistency and fresh fruit character. a sharp contrast to the toasted, yeast-driven profile commonly associated with French sparkling wines. Revered as the white diamond of the kitchen, the Alba white truffle, the only agricultural product in the world that still resists all attempts at artificial cultivation, is harvested exclusively from the wild, with a global supply of just around 30 tons per year. Buried as deep as 25 centimeters underground, truffles depend on an extremely fragile ecosystem. Prolonged droughts in northern Italy are drying out the soil, disrupting the symbiotic relationship between the fungus and tree roots, and pushing the species closer to the brink of disappearance. To hunt this rare delicacy, Italians rely on the Legato Romagnolo, a breed with an exceptionally sensitive sense of smell, trained from as early as 3 months old to locate truffles without eating or damaging them, unlike pigs. The harvesting process is highly meticulous. Once the dog detects the scent, the hunter must carefully dig with a small spade, ensuring the delicate mycelial network remains intact to allow regeneration in the following season. Skilled hunters often kneel to the ground, using their bare hands to gently separate the truffle from the roots with absolute precision. Even the slightest scratch can cause its unique aroma to dissipate rapidly, erasing thousands of dollars in value within just a few hours. The white truffle harvest season runs from October to December. This extreme scarcity has fueled an underground competition among hunters, who often operate secretly at night to conceal their locations. In some cases, rivalries have escalated to the poisoning of competitors' dogs in an effort to eliminate their harvesting capabilities. This harsh and delicate process has driven the price of white truffles to between $6,000 and $10,000 per kilogram, up to 30 times more expensive than premium Wagyu beef sought after by the ultra-wealthy. Their flavor is formed by a complex blend of more than 120 volatile compounds, creating an aromatic spectrum that ranges from damp earth and wild honey to an intense, musky richness. From the 3 tiny red stigmas hidden deep inside each purple flower, Iranians have created the world's most expensive spice, saffron. With prices typically ranging from several thousand to nearly $10,000 per kilogram, higher even than vanilla, Iran now controls nearly 90% of the global saffron supply. The heart of this industry lies in Khorasan Razavi province, in northeastern Iran, a semi-arid plateau where scorching dry summers meet cold winters and extremely low rainfall. Yet it is precisely this harsh environment that provides ideal conditions for saffron, a delicate crop grown from bulbs buried deep beneath the soil, highly sensitive to excess water, and blooming for only a few brief weeks in autumn. The saffron harvest lasts only about 6 weeks each year. During this brief window, farmers begin their work at dawn and finish before noon, when the intense sunlight causes the flowers to wilt quickly and the precious flavor compounds inside begin to deteriorate. All saffron is harvested entirely by hand. Each flower is carefully plucked from its stem and placed into breathable baskets rather than sealed bags, because even slight compression or heat buildup can almost immediately reduce its quality. Despite generating enormous export value, the workforce behind this delicate process, mostly women in Iran's rural communities, often earns no more than $5 a day for work that demands near absolute patience and precision. After harvesting, the delicate purple flowers are quickly transported to processing facilities to prevent bruising. There, the flowers are spread out in dry, well-ventilated spaces away from direct sunlight to preserve their quality before the most critical stage begins: stigma separation. Each flower is opened by hand, revealing 3 deep red stigmas, the only part kept for saffron production. This seemingly simple task is extremely labor-intensive. A skilled worker can separate about 600 stigmas per hour, meaning it takes roughly 40 hours of meticulous labor to produce just 1 kilogram of high-quality saffron. To create that amount, around 150,000 flowers must be harvested, a staggering raw material ratio that has earned saffron the nickname red gold. The red stigmas are then gently dried at low temperatures, reducing their moisture by up to 80% while preserving their color and distinctive aroma. After drying, the saffron shrinks into thin, dark red threads, delicate as silk, the final product that is packaged and exported to global markets. Beyond its labor-intensive production and extremely limited supply, saffron is also sought after in global cuisine and traditional medicine for benefits such as improving mood, providing powerful antioxidants for heart health, and supporting better sleep. It is often used to give a golden color and distinctive aroma to premium rice dishes, desserts, and drinks. When tasted, saffron has a slightly bitter note but leaves a warm, subtly sweet fragrance. After saffron, Iran possesses another strategic agricultural weapon worth more than $1.5 billion each year: pistachios, the biggest rival to California almonds on the global market. The star of this industry is the Akbari variety, an exceptionally long pistachio with a distinctive pink-purple shell, widely grown in Kerman province. Even on harsh saline soils, pistachio trees thrive thanks to their strong drought tolerance. However, the crop follows an alternate bearing cycle. After a heavy harvest one year, yields naturally decline the next as the trees recover, creating an unpredictable supply rhythm for global markets. The story of Iranian pistachio quality begins with the meticulous art of hand harvesting in late summer. Instead of relying on large-scale industrial shaking machines like those commonly used in the United States, Iranian farmers continue to favor traditional methods, hand-picking the nuts or gently striking the branches with wooden sticks to protect the trees for the next season. Large sheets are carefully spread beneath the trees to catch the falling nuts, ensuring they never touch the ground. This helps keep the inner shells clean and white while preventing the kernels from contamination or damage. A skilled worker can harvest 40 to 50 kilograms of pistachios per day, and during peak season, tens of thousands of laborers converge on the pistachio orchards of Kerman province. Once the pistachios leave the orchards, they must be transported to processing facilities on the very same day to begin post-harvest treatment. While harvesting remains deeply traditional, Iran's processing stage represents a technological leap forward. Inside the factories, each batch is dehulled, cleaned, and sent through rigorous sorting lines equipped with optical sensors. For premium varieties such as Akbari, workers still perform additional manual inspections to ensure perfect uniformity before the nuts are packaged for export. Ironically, the harsh desert soils play a crucial role in the flavor of Iranian pistachios. The stressful growing conditions concentrate natural oils within the kernels, allowing them to withstand roasting temperatures above 180 degrees while retaining their rich taste and distinctive aroma. This unique quality has made Iranian pistachios highly prized among confectionery and gourmet food producers, even though the United States now produces nearly twice as many pistachios overall. If saffron and pistachios symbolize Iran's plains and deserts, then honey, the treasure of its towering mountain ranges, has evolved beyond a simple nourishing food to become a luxury functional product, even used as a natural substitute for antibiotics in traditional Persian medicine. With an annual output of around 80,000 tons, Iran is now the third largest honey producer in the world. Yet what truly surprises gourmet food enthusiasts in the United States is not the volume, but the near-perfect purity of the organic honey harvested from Iran's remote highlands. The biggest difference lies in Iran's nomadic beekeeping tradition. Unlike industrial apiaries in the United States, where bees often remain in fixed locations and may be supplemented with sugar feed to maintain yields, Iranian beekeepers undertake seasonal migrations across the Zagros and Alborz mountain ranges. They move thousands of hives throughout the year, following waves of blooming flowers, from wild grasses on open steppes to rare medicinal herbs growing along high mountain slopes. About a month after the bees complete their nectar-gathering cycle during the flowering season, the honey harvest finally begins, and it still follows traditional methods designed to preserve maximum nutrients. Instead of heating the honey for faster packaging, a process that destroys delicate enzymes and vitamins, Iranian honey is extracted using cold centrifugal spinning at room temperature. This technique preserves the full characteristics of raw honey, retaining pollen and natural antioxidant compounds. One of the most prized varieties is cedar honey, produced from the blossoms of the wild cedar tree, and often referred to as the Manuka of the Middle East, because of its strong antibacterial properties. While Western markets are increasingly seeking organic products, Iranian honey has long met this standard naturally, as bees in these remote regions rarely come into contact with pesticides or chemical agriculture. For premium batches of cedar honey, international prices can range from $80 to over $200 per kilogram, making it one of the most valuable honey varieties in the Middle East. From the high mountains, we descend to the lush southern oases, where Iran cultivates one of the desert's most important crops, the date palm. With an annual production of more than 1 million tons, Iran is now the largest rival to Egypt in the global supply race, accounting for roughly 15% of the world's date production. From August to October each year, the harvest becomes a true test of patience and precision. Because dates do not ripen uniformly on the same cluster, workers must climb trees that can reach tens of meters high multiple times, picking only the fruits that have reached perfect ripeness. This careful method preserves the delicate skin of the fruit at the moment when it is at its most juicy and flavorful. Under favorable conditions, a skilled worker can harvest around 100 to 150 kilograms of fresh dates per day. Yet the job is far from easy. Each year, dozens of accidents are reported, from falls while climbing the tall palms to heat exhaustion under desert temperatures that can reach 45 degrees. After the harvesting process is completed, all dates are transported to processing and packaging facilities. There, modern processing lines quickly clean, sort, and inspect the fruits for quality. The dates are washed, lightly dried, and then graded by size and ripeness before being packaged. Thanks to advanced machinery and strict quality control systems, the final products meet high hygiene standards, maintain their freshness, and are ready to be exported to markets around the world. Without the lush green pastures of the Netherlands or the vast ranching systems of Australia, Iran still ranks among the top 4 countries in the world with the largest sheep population. Despite its harsh terrain, the livestock sector here operates largely through ancient nomadic herding traditions, with more than 50 million sheep supplying the essential raw material for the multi-billion-dollar Persian carpet industry. On rocky mountain slopes, Iran's nomadic sheep live alongside their herders in temporary camps at elevations of up to 3,000 meters. To sustain the flocks in such water-scarce environments, herders build simple trough systems that channel water from small mountain springs, ensuring the animals maintain stable digestion and rumination. Each year around May, when the plains begin to scorch under intense heat, the flocks migrate upward into the mountains in search of cooler climates. On barren slopes where grass is scarce, they survive by feeding on drought-resistant plants such as thorny shrubs, wild herbs, and sparse dry grasses growing between rocks, while relying on the few underground water seepages scattered across the rugged terrain. It is precisely this diet, rich in essential oils from wild mountain plants, combined with constant movement across steep slopes, that produces a distinctly different kind of lamb. The meat is leaner, firmer, and far more flavorful than lamb raised on industrial grain feed. Beyond meat, sheep milk in Iran is still hand-milked directly at mountain camps. With its exceptionally high levels of protein and fat, this milk forms the foundation of the famous Legvan cheese, a long-standing delicacy prized across the Middle East. The use of sheep does not stop at food. Wool harvesting here remains entirely manual. Instead of electric clippers, which are faster but can damage the natural structure of the fibers, nomadic herders use large hand-forged steel shears to control the precise length of each fleece. From this wool comes the ultra-fine Kirk fiber, the essential material behind Persian carpets that can sell for tens of thousands of dollars in luxury markets such as New York and California. Today, sheep have effectively become a form of mobile bank for many rural households in Iran. Within just a few years, the value of a single sheep has increased 2 to 3 times, turning livestock into a crucial financial buffer against natural disasters, inflation, and the unpredictable economic pressures the country now faces. Every year, the Fayum Valley, the chamomile capital of Egypt, harvests tens of thousands of tons of chamomile flowers to serve the global pharmaceutical and herbal tea industries. To keep pace with the rapidly growing demand, specialized chamomile harvesting machines are the decisive key. The entire process truly begins only after 8 a.m., when the morning dew has completely evaporated, allowing the flower heads to remain dry, preventing clumping and minimizing the loss of active compounds during collection. Chamomile harvesters operate using a unique brushing suction mechanism. A system of steel comb teeth, adjusted to a height of over 25 centimeters, gently brushes along the tops of the plants to separate only the essential oil-rich flower heads, while preserving the stems and leaves below for subsequent blooming cycles. The brushing force is precisely calibrated so that the flower heads detach without crushing their structure and are immediately drawn by a high-pressure airflow into the collection chamber to avoid direct sunlight exposure. With this mechanism, each machine unit can achieve productivity up to 30 times higher than manual labor, filling containers with a load capacity of 3.5 tons within a short period of time. However, the real race against time begins the moment the flowers leave their living sap flow. Because the stamens oxidize very quickly, the entire harvest must be transported urgently to the drying facility within a maximum of 4 hours. There, the flowers are dried using cool, dry airflow rather than high heat to remove 80% of the moisture while preserving their bright yellow color and the valuable active compound apigenin. Only after reaching a stable level of dryness is chamomile transported to the factory for screening and grading, before being exported directly to demanding markets such as the EU and the United States, where it is recognized as a functional medicinal herb rather than simply a relaxing tea. A symbol of the sun, with its radiant golden hue, the sunflower has long been regarded as the flower of light. Yet its true value does not lie in that brilliant beauty, but deep within its massive flower heads, weighing up to 2 kilograms, where thousands of oil-rich seeds concentrate the energy of an entire summer. To fully preserve the essential oil content inside, the industrial harvesting process is only allowed to begin once the plant has completely closed its life cycle. By then, the glorious yellow fades, giving way to vast dark brown fields stretching to the horizon. Leaves wither and droop, petals fall away, and it is precisely in that moment of decline that economic value begins to rise. When the back of the flower head becomes completely dry and seed moisture drops below the 10% threshold, combine harvesters move in simultaneously, sweeping across thousands of hectares of fertile black soil with specialized cutting headers. Unlike rice harvesting, the machines trim precisely the dried flower heads instead of cutting close to the base. At the front, An extended guiding tray system keeps each head upright before it reaches the cutting mechanism, almost entirely eliminating seed loss caused by mechanical vibration. Inside the machine, the impact rollers are precisely calibrated to separate the seeds from the flower head without damaging their structure, achieving a productivity of 30 to 50 tons per day. The remaining stalks and flower residues are chopped and blown back onto the field, forming a natural organic layer that returns nutrients directly to the soil, creating an almost closed-loop cycle. Thanks to such efficiency and precise engineering, on the famed Chernozem black soils of Ukraine, sunflower cultivation has risen into an economic engine worth more than 20 billion USDs each year. Not only does sunflower oil offer an ideal smoke point for cooking, it is also exceptionally rich in vitamin E, a factor that keeps its commercial value consistently twice that of soybean oil, securing a premium position over palm and rapeseed oil in the global market.